live. Of course I want to go live. All right, we are live. So this week we are live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, all over Twitter, all over the internet, because last week Taylor, who bought like the first 4 books in the series, missed like all of Book Talk Tuesday and didn't jump in until Rachel was just saying goodnight. And we didn't want people to miss out. And the only way to record it is to use our other social media platforms. And so it's streaming to the Colorworld Books YouTube page right now, and then it'll be logged there forever. So if you have to leave at any point in this Book Talk Tuesday, then have no fear. You'll be able to log on to our other social media platforms and then go view the parts of Book Talk Tuesday that you missed. Fair warning, there are going to be spoilers this week. We are going to actually talk about Teleworld, Book 2 in the Colorworld book series. So I just want to clear that up front, that Book Talk Tuesday on Book 1, which is much more focused on writing and aspects of writing and being a writer and how the series came together, things like that, was we really spent like a 10,000-foot view on Book Talk Tuesday on Monday. And then today we're really going to like get in there and talk about some of the things that actually happen in Teleworld. And so I guess now would be your also let me make the books in the series appear in the catalog. That was also an oversight. Apologies, we lost our famous person, so we're running a little behind. But we found her with baby in tow. So let me if I type in book, I should be able to find all the books in the series, and then I will promptly add them to the catalog for anyone who wants to grab. And then I'm gonna, now that Rachel's here, I'm gonna close my eyes and hit that promo button and see what happens. I think what it's gonna do, book. Oh no, it brought up everything with bookmark. Ugh, okay, that's not gonna eliminate. What if I type in Colorworld? Because clearly we have thousands of bookmarks behind us. Colorworld worked way better. All right, illustrated edition, 3-book bundle. Get a signed copy of Colorworld. Let's add those.
Email you had me saying, should we label Pop Shop Live?
For what? Yes, Pop Shop Live and other admin. I think World is the thing that I use to. Yep. See, Autumn just Autumn was already picking up what I was putting down. All right, let's put in Luma World in the catalog. That's book 3. Let's put in Waterworld. Let's all the volumes of Waterworld, and then let's put in let's see, Dream World. Yep. Teleworld is book 2. That's the book tonight. Shadow World is book 4. We'll put in the Colorworld book shirt. I have a couple of those left. And let's do it. And then we'll just put, for good measure, we'll put a couple metal bookmarks in there in case anybody wants to grab a metal bookmark tonight. We'll put in some ones that people seem to like. Do you know that we've made it like 6 months on Pop Shop and we just added all my bookmarks yesterday? I know. I was like, how did no one ask for All Might at any point up to now? I was a little shocked. All right, so we'll put in some All Might bookmarks. I mean, he's not the number one hero, so I get why there was an oversight. Endeavor is the number one hero. So all right, and then people like Todoroki, that guy's cool. How does that? I think there's some voting system in the world of My Hero Academia, and I think they also like log the arrests you make, the assists that you make, the villains in jail. I mean, I'm sure there's like a whole criteria. I bet if you Google ranking criteria, it'll literally tell you like there's probably all-star voting like they do for pro sports here in the United States. Bakugo is another big fan favorite. All right, so we'll add some Bakugo. Bookmarks. Blast Flight, people like that bookmark. Leap, that's a good one. All right. Boom. All right, and then I should be able to see all the things that are live. And we'll put the signed copy of Colorworld as the top item. Get a signed copy Well, let's put the 3-book bundle, and then we'll put, okay. Click. There's a way to do this. Oh, I can't remember how to do it. All right, I think I can do it here. If I click on the item here, it'll bring it up to the top. There's the 3-book. Save. Takes it to the top. Signed book 1. All right, there we go. The featured item is now the signed book 1. Yes, if you have not finished Teleworld, they're going to be spoilers. So you can either cut out now, or you can cut out as we get to the part of the book that you have not read yet. Yo, Sarai, welcome in, Sarai. All right, we'll get the multi-stream back up so we don't miss any comments, and then let's rock and roll. Okay, so for those of you following along in the multi-stream, if you're wondering where all these products are that I'm talking about, they're on Pop Shop Live. That's an app you can download on your iOS operating system, and then you can watch us live. Grab an autographed copy of the book series, grab metal bookmarks, whatever it is that fits your fancy. What's the goal here with this tiny person?
Get him to sleep.
Okay.
It's about that time, so.
Okay. So are you able to like
scoot in and like?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome in, Jacqueline. Welcome back, Hail Toddy. Welcome in, everybody. This week we're talking Teleworld, which is book 2 in the Colorworld series. Where's my prop? Rachel's hands are clearly full.
Yeah.
So there we are, the second book in the book series. I almost said audiobook series. There
is an audiobook.
And it definitely, the lighting is so bad on the laptop as compared to the phone.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
The camera. I'm gonna try to wipe the camera.
Can we get this light here on?
Oh, we can. I'm dumb. All right. Can my tech crew turn on the other remaining lights? I don't know why I didn't think to just add lights.
Mm-hmm.
Watch us light up.
Not much.
Yeah.
Better.
It is better. There's one more light, I think. Oh, trying to remember.
Welcome, Jacqueline. And
I almost died.
Hail Toddy.
Oh, man, that would have really sucked if the apparel tower collapsed when I light. That'd have been terrible. All right. Hey, there's more lights on us. And I think the distance that we stand away from here also seems to make a difference. All right, let's do it. So, book 2 in the book series.
Teleworld.
So, you said book 1 is absolutely 100% about the relationship between Gabe and Wendy. And that no matter how much you wanted to make it about anything else, the book series always came back to Gabe and Wendy.
Yep, it did. And Teleworld is, continuing in that vein for sure.
What made you? I mean, you start off the book with a bang, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the wedding of Gabe and Wendy.
Right.
How did you arrive at the conclusion that they must be married? Let's see, book is written what?
Well, they got engaged in book 1, so kind of follows that book 2 is going to include a wedding of some kind, possibly.
Okay, well, plenty of people get engaged and then 7 years later are married.
Oh.
What makes you?
I don't know why people do that. It's just not my experience. I guess you can do that. Like, we pledge to be married one day.
One day in the future.
Well, and that's kind of what happens at the beginning of book 1 is Gabe's like, so we're engaged. Is that going to happen sometime? And Wendy's like, that's not actually... They got engaged, but like a lot of married couples or engaged couples, they haven't really thought about a date. They're just like, we're going to do this thing at some point.
Okay, so when the deed is done and the engagement is complete, you're saying that in no one's mind, was there like a time frame?
I imagine there was in Gabe's mind. Wendy, we find out very early in the book is like, well, the reason I haven't really said anything about a date is because I'm secretly hoping that we'll figure out if I can like touch you first.
Oh, so Wendy, wow. So in book 2, Wendy desperately, realistically thinks that this is a quick solution.
Yeah, she's like, we're gonna figure this thing out, right? And in her mind, she's like, I definitely want to marry Gabe, but I want there, I want to be able to touch Gabe before I marry
Interesting.
him, which is kind of a reasonable thing to want, I would think, if you're getting married.
So for Wendy, there's every practical reason in the world um, to not marry Gabe until that. And then she doesn't have to decide on when they're going to get married because in her head, it's logical that they simply figure out how she can touch people without killing them
Hmm.
and then they get married.
Yeah.
Why is it so different for Gabe? Why does Gabe give 0% care about touching Wendy? Why is it so important to Wendy, who didn't want to touch people in the first place?
Well, I think that it's because Gabe is just like this romantic at heart, and he loves the idea of marrying Wendy without any, no indication that he's ever going to be able to touch her. And so, like, through his commitment to being married to her, despite not being able to touch her, like, it just demonstrates his like commitment, that it doesn't matter if I never touch you, I want to marry you, kind of thing. Like, that's you know, his ideal in his head is that he can sort of like commit to her through, despite her like handicap.
So
I guess.
he's almost marrying her just to prove that
Yeah.
depth of his love.
Yeah.
So if that's a huge part of Gabe's motivation, what is Wendy's motivation?
Well, she talks about that pretty extensively in book 1, where she's like, realizing why people get, she grew up with a single mother who and never really had any good examples of married people. And so she doesn't really know or have thought about why people get married. And so she finally like considers that. Like, okay, she knows she wants to be with Gabe, but she hadn't really thought about marriage. And then he just kept going on and on about like commitment. And she's like, what is he talking about? What does he mean, commitment? And she kind of like, it clicks for her finally. He's talking about getting married. And so she has to ask herself, like, okay, why? What would be the point of getting married, right? What does it mean? And so, once she realizes it's about like building something and being committed to somebody despite, differences, and getting through that and coming out on the other side a better person, like that's what she's after. That's what she realizes that she wants, or that's the purpose of marriage for her.
You mean the purpose of marriage is a mechanism for bringing about her future?
Yeah. She's like, I think that we can make something awesome together, and so I want to commit myself to this person, and
So there's
I want to build something.
a way more practical application for marriage. Like the romance that Gabe sees or Gabe envisions is very different from the I have a dream of what we look like in the future, and the way to do that is to be married.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that going to be an issue? The two different, or is Gabe still in a cloud, and at some point he's going to realize, because Gabe really is the practical person, right? He's the logics guy.
I mean, he is, but he's logical, but it's very much driven by his passions. So one of his passions being getting married, not being alone, being able to like express his feelings for somebody and kind of be the best at being married, and be the most committed and the most in it. And he did grow up with two parents who loved each other, so he has that as an example of like something to aspire to
do.
Yeah.
All right. Jackie Baby was born 10:10 p.m. on 7/7. 7/7 at 10:10 is when baby Yovel was born. He is 6 of 6.
Hi, Fiore.
Hey, Fiore, welcome in. Good, Fiore. I saw the bat signal. I saw that you requested our presence on the internet, and I told Rachel we were going to make 100% sure that we did Book Talk Tuesday on the multi-stream so that you could join in. So thanks so much, Fiore, for joining in. Hey, Brett, welcome in. Brett, welcome in. Rochelle, welcome back, Rochelle. Rochelle just got a whole bunch of bookmarks. So, Rochelle, if you need books to go with those bookmarks, we're about to make your dreams come true. Michelle B, welcome back, Michelle B. All right. So, Gabe, Wendy, at least initially, get married for different reasons. Gabe's quest to be the best, it's almost like the ontological argument for the existence of God. Are you familiar with the ontological argument for the existence of God?
Probably, if you say it again.
Okay, so it reasons that the best God, the most complete and real God, would actually be real, and therefore, because God is the best, God is real, because a God that is real is better than a God that isn't real. Therefore, God is real, because the best of all possible gods is one that actually exists.
Well, it's better with a God than.
Well, so in Gabe's mind, the ontological existence. The ontological argument for the existence of marriage is that a real man would be a married man. And therefore, since he wants to be the best man, he must be a married man, and therefore he must be married.
Yeah. Also though, you do find out later that there is a little bit of subconscious motivation for Gabe that he doesn't really come to terms with until like book 4.
Oh.
So that is worth noting
for another day.
That he's kind of in a hurry, and there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will get to that with Shadow World, but let's dive further into Teleworld. Teleworld, you revealed last week that you had no idea how important Kaylin was to the book series until one of the versions that you wrote for Colorworld had Kaylin saving Gabe and Wendy from Louise.
Yeah. Well, I think I just didn't want such a powerful character.
Whoops.
In the series. Yeah. And she just kind of like appeared. I'm like, she's a telepath. Okay. Like, she's a telekinetic, not a telepath. And
I was gonna say, I thought she wasn't.
Telekinetic.
Okay.
And
Phoenix is both the telekinetic and
but
telepath.
And I kind of introduced this idea in Colorworld where we realize, so initially Wendy's introduced to her and she's just can like float kitchen towels or like move the salt shaker.
Yeah, make water jiggle.
But Wendy discovers later that she's been secretly hiding the extent of her ability, that she can actually move giant boulders and
that's book 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and I don't really remember what my motivation was for that scene. I just wrote it and then it ended up working out. Later in the book series to understand why Kaylin is as powerful as she is. But that's not Teleworld. So
you struggled with is it because of the like essentially non-realistic that a person such as Kaylin shouldn't exist in your world because it kind of breaks the part of the reason you wrote the book series?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So what in the early day did you know? Okay, so what you know later as you write the series, did you know?
No.
But you just closed your eyes and you're like, I'm gonna have faith that this will make sense and this won't come back to bite me.
I guess so.
Okay.
It's really, I gotta tell you, it's kind of an existential experience.
Okay.
It's like you write something and you're like, I don't really, kind of like when I wrote Colorworld, like the Colorworld in Colorworld, where I was like, that was weird. Why did that just come out? And then I realized later that there was a basis for it, and it made total sense for Wendy to be able to see the Colorworld. So it's kind of the same thing. That's why writing is so fun, because it's like this stuff comes out and you're like, I don't know. And then it works out.
And so at what point did you have faith in your ability to kind of figure these things out later?
Well, just in that experience, for example, the one I described with writing the Colorworld, realizing that was happening in a lot of ways, where I would write something into the story and I wasn't really sure why it made sense. And then I'm like, later, it makes total sense. So then I began to trust those feelings that had me put these things in the story that at the time didn't have any explanation or reason or indication of the purpose in the future, and so it's just kind of a faith building process, I guess.
Well, because with the existence of the color world, the Zohar, the Jewish mysticism, was available on the bookshelf, and before Colorworld was over, had you already delved into, found out that was a real thing, or did that not come until you were really writing it for publication? Right? You write the first 3 books in the series, which obviously includes Kaylin, which obviously includes the weight of Kaylin's ability, which we're going to find out in book 2. One of the things we're going to talk about later is you absolutely find out the extent of Kaylin's power in book 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's the question?
So I guess because originally you write the book series in 6 weeks, right? You write the first 3 books in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So you really didn't have to wait long to figure out why Kaylin is the way that she is. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there, interestingly, and this is, I guess you find this out from Kaylin, but originally Kaylin, when I wrote in the first draft, Kaylin could move people.
Really?
Yeah. But I changed that, not knowing why I changed it, that she could not move things with a high water content. And I didn't know why I did that, why I made that change until later. So speaking of things that I felt inspired to write and then realized later why I wrote it that way. Kaylin not being able to move things with water was one of those things.
Okay, the desert is not 2, right?
That is 2.
It is 2?
Yeah.
The desert's right
Somebody
before
needs to read the book.
The desert's right before the shopping mall?
The desert is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the shopping mall.
Okay.
There's no water in the desert.
Well, instantly that made that connection for me. As soon as you said that, I instantly think like, oh man, what a bad place to meet Kaylin in the desert, where there's a lack of water and she can essentially.
Well, remember, Kaylin is part of she helps pick the location. She's like, I think we should be here.
Does she know that, or does she just intuitively?
Does she know what?
Does she know that, like in terms of her limits to her?
Oh, of course, because she's testing her limits in book 1 when Wendy comes upon her
she's
in the woods.
swirling boulders around.
Yeah, she knows that. In fact, she says that in book 1. Like, I can only move things without a lot of water in them, or I can't move water.
I totally missed. I mean, it makes sense that she would have, especially if she's out there in the woods, that she would have can I move a stream? Can I pick up everything?
Yeah, and there was actually originally a scene. So remember, I wrote the first 3 books before I ever published.
Right.
But book 2, she also had a scene where instead of the desert, they were at Robert's house and she moves the water out of the pool. It's kind of like airbender style or waterbender style.
Which can't happen.
Yes, which I changed later because that was a really cool scene, by the way, that I wrote.
Was it inspired at all by waterbending?
Well, I do really love that scene in the movie. Like, I get why the movie is such a trash heap compared to the show, but that scene's very awesomely done.
The movie's awesome.
Yeah, water scene movie for sure. And I think because they were at the time escaping people at Robert's house, and it was like, well, what can she use to take out all these people at once? I know, here's a pool of water. But I changed all of that once I felt inspired to not have her move water.
Oh man. Okay. That was originally in book 2.
Mm-hmm.
So did you hold that? Okay. I guess I'll save that for 2 weeks from now. So we're going to all remember that Rachel just said that at Robert's house, and a lot of people, we're going to revisit that idea of being at Robert's house in 2 weeks. Okay. Had you.
Well, I go to Robert's house in book 2. Because they're going through Robert's files because they're trying to find out if he's dirty or not.
Yeah. Well, they want to know, okay, you knew Kaylin was important when in one of the versions she saves Gabe and Wendy. Mm-hmm. At what point do you, the writer, decide whether or not Robert is good or bad? When do you know that? When do you know if Robert's a hero or a villain?
I didn't know that till book 3.
So even in book 2,
yeah.
You don't even know what they're going to find in Robert's they're like
Yeah.
looking through the files, and you're like, I don't know what's in there.
I'm like, oh my gosh, Robert's dirty. That dirty scoundrel.
Dirty, rotten scoundrel. Oh, the Avatar movie. I like the Avatar movie. I get a lot of shade for liking the Avatar movie, but
Well, they could have at least pronounced his name right. I mean, my goodness.
oh, that is a bone that
That's
a lot of
really
people
messed
have.
up. Like, why would you do that? Come on, you can't even say the characters.
It's definitely
It's
one of
okay to have variations because they're two different mediums, but get the name the same.
who do you think approved that? Didn't he have to license that property from Nickelodeon?
I guess maybe they're like, can we have the white version of that name?
You're saying Ong is the white version
I don't
of
know.
Aang?
I'm just saying maybe it
Because
is.
M. Night's not even white.
I know.
Is-
I don't know. You know what it is with M. Night? He's kind of a hipster, and he's like,
We don't
I'm gonna
talk
do this
about
thing.
it.
He's like, I want to do something super, because all of his movies are a little bit weird.
He does definitely want to bother people.
Yeah.
You think he just did that to bother people? That seems like the most logical.
Maybe, or he wanted to like make it his own thing. Like he's hoping, okay, so this isn't going to be exactly like the show, so I'm going to change the name so that people aren't under the impression that it's supposed to be the show.
I mean, I guess.
Except that I swear every person that ever makes a movie out of a comic, like they always end up learning that the people who want to watch the movie are the fans of the graphic novel, the show.
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And you can't offend those people, and they want it to be as close to the rendition of the written word as possible.
Okay.
You can't do, okay, this is Avatar, but not. Like, you can't do that. This is Spider-Man, but not.
So
This is Batman, but not.
So you're saying when the Colorworld movies exist, they've got to be.
Well, yeah, we have to follow it like.
All right, we're gonna have Sam Daly on set at all times.
Well,
She's gonna be.
I've also written the book, so I do know a thing or two about
But you don't like movies, so I can't have you there. You're gonna.
Since I don't like
You're gonna say anti-movie things.
Well, I can certainly make sure that things are accurate.
That's what we have Sam for.
Yeah.
Sam knows the books inside and out. Okay. So I love that this idea that you have no idea if Robert is good or bad. Do you like Robert in book 2? Like as a writer, are you into Robert? Do you like him?
I do. I do like Robert. There's kind of an inkling that he is good.
He may be good.
Well, because he basically, takes her in and he gives her some advice. Not a ton, but her interactions with him seem to be genuine. And I always really liked describing Robert, so I kind of wanted him to be a good guy. Of course, I enjoyed Horatio too, but he's kind of
Oh man, he is very different. He's a different kind of dad dude than that's funny that you like Horatio.
I like writing Horatio.
I like Horatio in that movie where when they scream. What is it? Something CSI Miami. I love that Horatio where he puts on his sunglasses in every single episode. That's a great Horatio. Fiore, I don't know that I've ever seen Alien vs. Predator. Have you ever seen Alien vs. Predator?
No.
Yeah.
No. M. Night, he did a great job with
Village.
The Sixth Sense.
I like The Village.
Which is definitely top 10 movies of all time. And I don't like many movies, so probably only 10 movies that I like anyway.
The Sixth Sense is in your top 10 movies that you like?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I love The Sixth Sense.
Okay. We should rewatch that on some
I did
date
I
night.
made the kids watch it like a year ago, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I rented it on like Amazon Prime probably. I was like, you guys have to watch this.
You guys have to watch this. I need to make the kids watch Lord of the Rings. We have physical copies of those somewhere, right?
I don't know, maybe.
Because I don't know if they're available for streaming
somewhere.
anywhere. I need to find that out. The twist at the end of The Village, or all of them.
Is there a where to sit or somewhere?
Yeah. Did you? I didn't know you came in like standing
There's
up.
There's like a stool over there.
There's a. I'll go look for it if you want to. Talk about your favorite part of book 2. What do you love more than anything about book 2? When you look fondly on book 2? What jumps out?
I really loved writing the conversation between Wendy and Gabe when Gabe was sitting in her room thinking about touching her, and she wakes up and realizes he's in her room and he was like this close to touching her, and she's like super freaked out, and he's like super calm the whole time, and she's asking him questions and he's just like answering them like, you're ridiculous. What, you know, of course I have a plan. Like, I'm not being, she thinks he's just crazy. She's like, you're absolutely crazy, and everything coming out of your mouth is crazy. And so I love like the frustration of Wendy in that scene where she's like realizing who she married, and Gabe is just like super calm and chill. This needs to move just a little bit.
She really has beef with Gabe.
Well, yeah. I mean, she has a reasonable fear, and she has a pretty bad track record as far as like touching people and killing them. So she doesn't want to like risk his life because she loves him. And he's just going on these sort of like theories about what's up.
I was just making sure you got two camera angles.
Yes.
All right, cool. So no matter what Gabe wants, it's irrelevant to Wendy in terms of like him risking his own life. Like, she never sees it as risking his own life. She always sees it in relation to her life.
Well, it has to be, because she's married to him. You can't just like off yourself when you're married to somebody, because their life matters too, man.
You can't just off yourself.
You can't like, I'm gonna, if you decided to like go skydiving, like we would have to have a serious talk. Like,
well,
you
sure.
can't just do that. We're married.
I also would not do. I mean, you get a lot of money, but I think if you're gonna die, you should do something more admirable than skydiving.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying that Wendy sees it akin to taking this excessive risk, and he's not the only one who loses.
Yeah.
In fact, he doesn't lose because he's dead.
That's true.
Wendy has to live.
Wendy's the loser, and Gabe.
And not only that, she has to live knowing she's the one who killed him.
But is she? It would be ruled a suicide. You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter if you mean to, if you had a hand in it. That's hard.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know that you can hold somebody like you existed and therefore you killed him. It's definitely on.
What do you guys think? Like, Wendy's afraid that she's going to kill the guy if she touches him, and he wants to touch her anyway. And so if he dies, she's got to suffer like knowing it was by her hand.
That being said, she's already touched Kaylin and Ezra at this point.
No, only Ezra.
Nope, because you said that the desert was book 2, which means
is after the scene that I'm talking about, where Wendy's afraid and she's mad at him because he's trying to touch her.
But she's already touched Ezra.
Yeah, she touched Ezra.
So Gabe already knows there's something up in terms of what's available. Blanca, welcome in. Christopher, welcome in. Professor Oak, welcome in. Welcome in, everyone. And 3J and Zos, you all better be doing something. I gotta tell you, if you're typing, that means your hands are on your phones. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to. Why is it that Wendy assigns no value to her touching Ezra and him living? Like, Gabe's like, I have this very important data point.
Well, sure, but you can't place the entire experiment on one data point. You can't.
So Wendy just frankly sees it as extemporaneous, as a oh my gosh,
an outlier.
Yeah, but what's the scientific term when you
an outlier?
That's what it is?
Yeah.
When you do the graph and all the data fits on, and then
Except for this one, it's an outlier. Yeah. And you typically don't pay attention to outliers.
Right, you're supposed to ignore them.
Yeah.
And so Wendy's argument is, hey, you idiot, you're basing your conclusion on an outlier when the data suggests that every other person is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Does he still have a leg to stand on when she touches Kaylin and Kaylin also lives? That makes his case even stronger.
They split up by the time that happened. And so she's kind of like, you know how like you make a decision, right? And then you begin to look at everything in the light of that decision, like to justify that decision that you made, right? So at that point, Wendy isn't, she becomes unreasonable because she's like, you know, I shouldn't have married him to begin with. He was always pushing me and making me afraid, and the person you love shouldn't make you afraid. And so she, begins to like, hindsight is looking at all of the decisions made and thinking like this was never right to begin with. So she's definitely not wanting to let Gabe in on the fact that Kaylin touched her in the desert. So
that seems super disingenuous. Super disingenuine.
Well, if somebody's, threatening to like endanger themselves, that's your.
Yeah, it's tough.
And my editor pointed out something that I thought was actually very important is consent. That he was going to touch her without consent, and that is wrong. Whether
did he? I thought didn't he set criteria? Didn't he set like a formula for if XYZ?
Can you help me?
Yeah, what do you need?
I need you to block me so
Yeah.
my boob's not on camera.
I can do it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Does that work right there?
Well, probably, unless he starts squirming again.
Okay.
Just
all right.
Be observant.
I'll keep an eye out. I never, I don't want to be like, you've been doing this. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm useful or I'm needed. All right, I got it. Oh, he's the one that's doing it.
Yes, and he's like.
He's like, I don't enjoy this experience if I have to be completely covered and overheated.
Like looking at me like,
what is this? You look at, there's a lot of colors there, buddy. A lot of stuff to look at in here. I think he's more interested in looking at everything that can be looked at than he is at that dude. Right. That's wide awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. He probably should like wrap him up and put him in the swing next door, but if he gets really fussy. So you might
next door, like across the.
Like put him in. I usually wrap him up.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
he really hasn't had a nap.
Oh, so he's primed, primed for bedtime. All right. Thanks everybody for excusing. We have to get, we got to do what we got to do.
It's hard to go 2 hours without having to deal with baby.
Yeah. Yep. He is 7 months. 7 months now. Yeah.
6 months. It'll be 7 months in February.
Okay.
We're almost there.
Almost there. Yeah. February 7th, he'll be 7 months. All right. Nikki, welcome in. Adriana, welcome in. For new folks, we are talking about Book 2 in the Teleworld series. Book 2, Teleworld, in the Colorworld series with author Rachel E. Kelly. So a lot of you who are familiar with all the metal bookmarks and things that we do, all the metal bookmarks came from, oh, look at that. As soon as he saw that book, he's like, ooh, his eyes lit up. You can really see it in the side shot. He's like drawn to the book. Yo, thanks for stopping by, Fiore. I appreciate you. If you got to go, this will be available on our YouTube channel. We're going to stream each Book Talk Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central. We're going to stream it on the multi-stream. That way, in case anybody's at work at those times, especially for Pacific Coasters, because 5 p.m. Central is still 3 p.m. Pacific, right in the middle of the workday. Okay, good. You goober. This is Book Talk Tuesday, Fiore. So we're talking Teleworld. I have only seen bits and pieces of Predator. I can only tell you that they're in the jungle and that predators are like invisible and Arnold Schwarzenegger hunts them. That's it. That's my extent of Predator. And Aliens, all I know is what I see in like Spaceballs, where the alien like pops out of his stomach and then starts dancing on the bar and singing. That's not even actually an Aliens, except for the coming out of the stomach part. All right. Alfredo, welcome in. All right. Gabe is a manipulative bastard, and he's trying to get Wendy to do what he wants.
I mean, yes. But, Wendy she's very afraid. And Gabe has a really good point of like the fact that Wendy has all these fears, but she hasn't like set any criteria. Like she hasn't decided like, how am I going to approach this? So she's sort of just like waiting around for things to happen.
That may or may not ever happen.
Yeah. And a lot of times things don't happen unless you push unless you go in a direction.
In a direction.
And so, you know, she's flawed as well. She's letting her fear rule her. And so they're kind of, you know.
So she's not without fault
in
this whole situation. Okay.
No, but you know, she is 19. So there is that. Let's not forget that she is quite young.
She's literally a teenager.
Yeah.
Yep.
And has very you know, she doesn't have great experience with like losing people, and she doesn't have a lot of people in her life. So, you know, wanting to protect the small family that she's gained, kind of a big deal to her.
Gotcha. And to what degree does Gabe assess any of the things that you're talking about? You know, like he's looking at this logically. She's touched Ezra. He lived. Unbeknownst to Gabe, she touches Kaylin, and Kaylin lives. To what degree do we assign Gabe's ability to kind of ascertain that some of what he's getting from Wendy is a result of either inexperience or life experience, right? Like,
I think he gives her a lot of credit, too much credit because of her age. Like, and he's such an analytical person and is always actively working toward this cure, right, for her lethal skin, and hasn't really stopped to think about where she's at, like emotionally. Like, one of the things that he tells her is like, hey, you touched your brother. Like, you have to assign something.
You have to do something with that information.
To, like, what does that mean? You know, that's a big deal that you touched him and he's alive. So you can't just ignore that. You know, that those outliers actually do tell us something in the data, right? So he has definitely trying to analyze the problem. And one of the great scenes in there is that Wendy says, like, she tries to accuse him of saying, like, hey, you said you wanted to marry me and you didn't care if we touched each other, but yet you're like pushing for this thing that's driving us apart and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you've expressed that it's important to you. You've expressed that you didn't even want to get married until we could touch each other. So I know how important it is to you. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it happens. Right. So that's another thing that, like, she doesn't realize is driving his actions. So it makes him look like a giant douche. But, you know, in reality, he's just doing what she has expressed will make her happy.
Well, and when he agrees to that, there's 0 people that they're aware of that have touched Wendy and lived. And so he's saying, with this set of facts, I'm willing to do these set of things in order for us to be able to be together. And now that the facts have changed, I'd like to re-examine the list of things that I'm willing to do. And also, you seem to not have given up on this. Yeah. So let me add that to my...
Yeah. You know, she's expressed her discontent with the status quo. And so now he wants to fix that problem for her, which is what dudes do. And that's kind of like an ongoing problem, is like, female expresses concern and male tries to fix concern, but does it all wrong. And female hasn't really thought about how they want concern fixed and haven't expressed that to male counterpart. So
yeah,
it's the tale of the ages.
Welcome to my life.
Well, I think that many men would agree with you that, you know, not to be stereotypical, but the stereotype.
No, to totally be stereotypical. The shoe fits both feet, left and right foot.
Not to say that there aren't exceptions to this dynamic. I'm just saying that in many
I don't know them.
I've observed.
I have 0 guy friends that when their wife says this is a problem, that their first reaction isn't, I could fix that problem.
Yeah, let me fix this for you.
And then every wife's like, wait, it's not what I asked for.
Yeah.
There should be like a questionnaire. Like, I have to talk to you. And then the husband slides across the questionnaire and it says, do you want, at the very top, do you want this problem solved?
Yeah.
Do you want this problem solved by me? Are you willing to listen to advice by me? Should I just sit there, shut up, and listen? And then the person should check it and then hand it back. And then the conversation can ensue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he definitely wants to make her happy. But they really haven't talked about what she wants. You know, that's something that he says at the end of the book. He's like, I knew you wanted this thing, but I never once asked you how I could make you happy in this situation. And that was on me, you know. So he recognizes the error and she recognizes where she fell short on communicating with him what she was after. But in the end, you know, and then that's kind of how marriage works, where, yeah, we can go back and say we could have done this differently, but would we go back and do it differently if the outcome was positive, you know? So it worked out despite.
D, welcome in. Hey, Gabe. Gabe, welcome in. We're talking about you, Gabe. You are the male protagonist in the Colorworld book series. It's named Gabriel. So we're definitely saying your name like 200 times. I absolutely love the desert is phenomenal. Did you know going into it in the desert, or are you writing in real time where Kaylin falls into the pit and lands on Wendy?
Oh, I'm sure I wrote it as it happened.
As it
I didn't
happened?
have like a.
So were you?
I think I probably, so, you know, I had the sort of water effect originally with the pool, but
Right.
I'm like, okay, so what else can I do this with? Well, probably a lot of dirt.
A lot of
So
dirt.
I think I recreated that scene, but with dirt.
Okay.
So that certainly was in my mind going into it for sure.
Well, did you freak out when you're writing and Wendy falls back, or Kaylin falls back, touches Wendy's arm, and then the battery kicks on and Kaylin's power gets amped up? Were you like running around screaming? Like, what is your reaction?
No.
What? How lame. I was definitely running around screaming.
No, I knew she was.
But
she
you,
was fine.
okay, well, you knew what Kaylin was going to be fine, but did you know what Wendy was going to do to Kaylin? Do you know about Wendy's battery function?
Oh, no, I'm trying to think if I had written. No, I'm pretty sure that came out in that scene.
And
That effect.
did you like stop it all, or you just plowed right through it?
Probably. It's a long time ago. I mean, we're talking like 7 years ago.
All right,
When
all
this
right.
thing- I'm pretty sure that I stopped and was like, "Is that really what happened?"
You stopped. Listen, Rachel.
Sometimes I do that. I write things and I'm like, "Is that really what happened?"
Are you talking to yourself? Like, who are you talking to when you ask those questions?
I don't know. God. Is this really what should
My
happen?
editor. Hey. Oh, that's funny. Okay. So then did you imagine other things that Wendy could do? You know, because this whole book, well, I mean, it's not, you're only a book and a half into it by the time you realize that Wendy has a battery power that she can use. Do you then begin to imagine all the ways in which Wendy might be able to use herself as a battery? Or are you like, I'm going to tuck this in my pocket and I'm going to pull this?
Yeah, I think it was like tuck it in my pocket. I wasn't really sure what. Now, you know, I knew that Kaylin's powered by, you know, emotions, her energy, right? Because in book 1, she talks about how, you know, periodically she goes into the woods to expend her energy
Oh, right.
so that it doesn't come out at the wrong time. So there is this idea of like replenishing energy and using it.
Gotcha.
So I knew that was a thing. And it seemed logical to assume that touching somebody could energize them. I mean, you know, if you're feeling down, you want to hug somebody and it makes you feel better. And I don't know if we could like express why it makes us feel better, but I think a lot of it is like energy transference where I'm a little higher than you. And so I hug you and I give you some of my energy so that you feel better. So,
I'm into that.
Yeah, I think that was, you know, what I was thinking, with that scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we just tuck that into the back pocket. It's what I love about the powers in the Colorworld series is that you the writer really have to, at least from the reader's perspective, have to figure out like, well, how do I apply this? there's always like a math problem, I feel like this person can do this thing, okay, great, that's not seemingly spectacular, like at no point is the answer like we'll just overpower them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that is definitely something that I have to think long and hard of, because Kaylin is a telekinetic, but she's really not. I mean, she's very powerful. She's one of the most powerful people in the entire universe of Colorworld.
Right.
And actually find out that telekinetics aren't that unusual, but most of them aren't.
They don't have the ability that Kaylin has.
Yeah, because Kaylin's really honed it. But in the series, you come to realize that the power of these abilities truly comes in cooperation between people and pairing the right people together so that their powers work and complement each other. And then that's how and also this idea of being aware of your power. So, there's a lot of abilities in Colorworld that people get that if nobody had told them, hey, you have this crazy hypnotouch done to you and now you have this power, or what power do you think you have? Be on the lookout for these unusual skills that you might have. Nobody would necessarily think of that. Some of the things that I write about in Colorworld, like I
knew it.
We just cut out a pop shop.
All right. Let me know if you all can you all still hear me?
Got a phone call.
Can you hear me? I got a phone call. Let me know if does the audio still work? Yeah. Okay, good.
Excellent. All right.
A lot of times when the phone call happens, my audio cuts out. All right. So you were saying that a lot of people have an ability in the Colorworld universe, but
and the only reason they are even aware of those abilities is because of the community that they're born into.
Oh, okay. So you're saying for most people that know that they have an ability, the only reason they know is because they're born into a world.
They've been raised to believe that they have this skill, and then they've been raised to nurture that skill, and they've been put in places so that they can use that skill, and then so they become better at it and more skilled at it. And that is, kind of the message of Colorworld is that you might not think anything of the fact that you can perceive what people think, right? What they're thinking in the moment. That's a real gift. And if you work to hone that gift, you can actually get better at it. So, it's kind of that way with being an empath. Like once you have recognized that you are picking up other people, you can now use that empathic ability to help other people and to assess the situation and be cognizant of like maybe the things that people aren't saying that are happening to them in the background. So,
to what degree does your experience with X-Men kind of color your? There's a bit of that. Let's go out and find who else can do these things, right? That's a very X-Men thing to do.
Oh,
right?
Like School for the Gifted. Yeah, I mean, and Ezra's, Jamie, my editor, in the initial edits of the books was like, okay, you have to decide now whether you're going to call yourself out or whether you're just going to pretend like X-Men doesn't exist. So Ezra became my way of calling myself out. Like that I knew that there were these things out there that already existed.
That were like...
Yeah, that I mean, I'm sure that it influenced my writing, the fact that they go to this compound in book 1 and then later on, that there are other organizations that exist. Like, I'm sure that colored it. It's hard to like quantify that because once you know it, you can't like pretend like you don't know it.
Right. Yeah. I was just wondering in terms of like as I was listening to you talk about people who know that they have an ability versus people that don't know, like so much of the X-Men, the story of the X-Men is always going out and finding those folks that need a place to belong, that they maybe don't realize that there are other people that are like them. And, as you get further into the color world, there's certainly that aspect of going and finding is a big deal.
Yes. It's a little bit different because with X-Men, the abilities are quite a bit more out there.
Oh, for sure.
So you'd be pretty ignorant to not realize that if you can create fire, that's
You have a superpower.
you know. Whereas Wendy goes her whole life of like being an empath and not thinking anything of it really,
Right.
and it's more of a burden to her than anything. And if you look at some of the later abilities for other characters, it's like a person could live and not really think anything of the fact that they have this skill. But I think that's more. Honestly think that's more prevalent than people give credit for. So if you have a skill,
if you have a special ability,
just know that you're not alone.
You're not alone. That has been cool, right? I remember certainly for the first 2 or 3 years, you would have a lot of people tell you about.
Oh yeah, I had, and especially empaths. So many people. I didn't realize how prevalent. And it was before empaths were like a thing. Now, like you go on Facebook, everyone's like, "I'm an empath. I'm an empath. I'm an empath," and they read this article. This is so me. Why you're an empath? Blah blah blah. But back then, it was not a widely
acceptable.
It wasn't acceptable to tell people, "Hey, I'm an empath."
I think I missed that part of history.
Yeah, it happened at some point. I was like,
because people have said it, and I'm like, well, that's weird. I thought that was like a Colorworld thing. Like, have you read the?
Yeah, like have you read Colorworld?
Have you read Colorworld?
Yeah. No, now it's commonly accepted.
You're ahead of the science, Rachel.
It happens a lot.
You're a trendsetter.
I've always wanted to be a trendsetter.
I've always wanted to be a trendsetter. I am the ultimate hipster. I will set the trend, and then I don't have to pretend like I don't do trends because I started it.
Yeah.
Welcome in, Juana and other Rachel. Rachel P. Welcome in, Rachel. We're talking with the Rachel Kelly of the Colorworld book series.
So I guess that's the big difference between Colorworld and X-Men is one is
X-Men.
It's very obvious that you have a superpower. The other one is
not so obvious.
Hey, by the way, the skill that you have is actually a superpower and you should actually use it. And there are actually other people with that same power and you actually can get better at it.
Wait, you're saying that X-Men, they never get better at their power?
Sure, they do, but like it's already so powerful. It's mostly about like not killing people.
Right.
Like, oh, you're Iceman. Be careful. Don't freeze anybody.
Don't freeze anybody.
And there are huge limitations
in
Colorworld to people's ability, and that primarily being water. That's the
whoa, dun dun dun.
Nobody.
Is that why book 5, 6 is called Waterworld?
I was thinking about
Dun
that earlier.
dun dun.
And well, we haven't talked about it, but Waterworld also has another reason that it's called that.
Okay. You talking about the stuff with Carl, or?
Yeah, Carl shows her.
You gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
In book 5.
Gotcha. We're gonna zippy long stocking on that because that's for another Book Talk Tuesday.
Yes, because one of the cool things that I wrote in Teleworld that I didn't realize was the significance. He's so weird.
This kid is nuts. He's just going everywhere.
He loves to like.
He does. He loves to be right.
Yeah,
up.
he's such a scorn.
He's like, oh.
He gets that from me. Did you know that my parents used to call me Wiggle Waller?
Oh yeah.
Like, cause I would be sitting on people, and then before you know, I was like wrapped around their neck, and like, all like under their arm and behind them.
There you go.
Yeah, he gets it from me.
That's your will.
Eav's more like,
ow.
Not like this. This is like,
thank you.
I'm gonna be your mink.
I'm gonna be your mink.
Mink scarf.
Yo, Taylor, you made it this time. Welcome in, Taylor.
Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. End of Teleworld. The end of the book, where Wendy realizes she can't see water in the Colorworld.
Oh, that's already in Teleworld?
Book 2, yep.
Man, that was early.
That I wrote that and I was like, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, that's a big thing to slip into.
Yeah, but I wrote it and I was
and like, you didn't know what
I didn't know what it was for. I was like, this is really cool. I can't wait
to find out what this means. Oh man, I love that. I love that you can really even participate with your readers.
Oh my gosh, so much. It's more fun. It's more fun than reading.
Writing is more fun than my God.
It is.
And that's a huge part of, because I know in last week's Book Talk Tuesday, folks were asking you if you have like a timeline in the style of the discovery style of writing that you do. You really can't. There's no way to have a timeline, right? It's just not even. like all you can do is head off in a direction. Be like, I think this thing's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Because anything more than
A
that,
timeline, you mean, and how long it takes me? What do you mean by timeline?
well, meaning that people are like, oh, do you have everything plotted out?
Oh, gotcha.
And the way that you're describing is you're almost as unknowing as the reader.
I mean, like I said, I know how the books are going, the series is going to end, but I don't really know.
Yeah, because the other day you were like, I know how it's all going to end, right? You said you know the end?
I do know the end, but I don't really know.
Oh,
I know where I'm going, but I don't know if that's where I'll end
you
up.
don't know what happens when we get there.
Because it's important to know where I'm going, to at least have an idea of where I'm going. Even
Right.
if I'm going to be wrong, I have to move in a direction. Otherwise, you're kind of like everywhere. I think that's a big struggle for writers is like, I have to know exactly where I'm going. But I think that a lot of times we don't trust ourselves to,
to
just
figure it
go
out.
in a direction and then be wrong if that's not the right direction. Like, it's okay. Just relax.
You're never wrong because you
Yeah.
don't.
It's very much a faith. It's a faith journey.
Hey Taylor, yes, I definitely have my hands full. This kid is crazy. Every time you just try to put him in some respectable position, he just goes he just rotates. Try to put him asleep?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wrap him up.
Well, if you want to wrap him, then I will go take him over. I'll see if I can think. That kid's hilarious. Okay. I absolutely loved the conversation in the gas station.
Oh boy, gotta hear about the gas station.
Because this
like
is,
literally everybody comes by the booth who's read the book. He's like, "Have you read? Did you just get your mind blown from the gas station scene?"
well, to me, this was like what convinced me that I should sell our house and move into an RV
Okay,
and
so
like.
what do you want me to?
Okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should talk about something because I don't want to talk about the gas station. It's my favorite.
Okay, well then, what do you?
All right, we need a topic to discuss that can last as long as it takes me to take this tiny package over and put him in the swing. In terms of, did you know the kind of ruckus that was going to happen when they get to the mall, the shopping mall? So the desert's over. We know that Kaylin is insane.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Kaylin and Wendy together are crazy. And there's basically nothing those two women can't do together. Did you know when they go and they're like, we got to get someplace populated. We got to get into a public area. Because the one way to stop Kaylin, right, is just to shoot her.
Yeah.
I mean, she may be able to throw 20-foot walls of sand at you, but she still can just be shot like everybody else.
Yeah.
So they go to the mall, the shopping mall, the outdoor shopping mall to get one, give Kaylin firepower, and then two, to kind of, they're like, there's no way these people would accost us in public, right? Because they can't risk what happens next. Mm-hmm. So then what did you know going into it, what you were going to do with that fight in the...
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so there was definitely I remember like struggling to decide whether they were going to be using lethal or non-lethal weaponry. Because non-lethal weaponry is not really a developed technology right now. Like, you can use a tranquilizer gun, but it's not very accurate at certain distances, and it doesn't act as quickly as they might have wanted it to act. And so I had kind of a big decision to make about, how much of a bloodbath this was going to be or not. And in the end, it seemed to me that they should not use, because they wanted her alive. I mean, she's this telekinetic who's very powerful. And why would they want to kill somebody like that? So I definitely had to decide early on, that they were going to use non-lethal weaponry. And then I definitely knew that I wanted to throw some cars around. That was that was definitely something I knew was going to happen. So I was like, we got to get to a bunch of cars. I know, a parking lot. Oh, it's even better. It's a parking deck, right? Because then they're like confined into a small space. So yeah, that's definitely something that I decided early on that there was going to be cars being thrown around. But I was surprised by when they were walking because in the books it's this open air mall, so it's outside. It's not an indoor mall, and kind of in the middle, like the pavilion is there's grass and trees and things growing. I was surprised that Kaylin started ripping up trees and like creating this whirlwind around them of protection. I thought that was super cool. I did not know that that was going to happen when I started writing that scene. So that was really cool. Um, I remember struggling a lot with trying to figure out like make it sound really epic in the written word. It's so hard to write good action scenes and have people like see that in their minds. So I was really pleased when people were like, "Oh man, the tree whirlwind, that was so cool," and I'm like, "Oh well, thank heavens, I like figured that out." The other, I have a friend who wrote uh, uh, a like a war scene from like 1100 with a lot of troops and things, and I just remember thinking like, I'm so glad I don't have any like major war scenes because it's so hard to write that many characters doing something at the same time. So, as if you've ever thought about like how does that happen in writing, like how do you um, have people see the whole vision? A camera can like pan out and see a bunch of people going at each other in a war scene, but you can't do that in a book. It's like really, really hard. You're really only going to get one person's point of view and maybe a few people if you have an omniscient view where you're looking at all these things happening. But that's tough because if you have an omniscient view, it's very hard for the reader to get involved with the character enough to care about them. So many things prevent us from really being able to visualize what's going on. So with Colorworld, that's kind of always why I've kept it a really small group. And whenever I get too many people in the group, I start to get really overwhelmed. Like, oh my goodness, I have to keep track of all these people because if they haven't talked in a while, it's easy to forget that they're around in a book. Like if you have a group of 10 people and like only 3 of those people are talking, it's very easy to forget that there are 7 other people in the group. So, Wendy, Kaylin, Ezra, Gabe, those 4 have always been like the cornerstone. And I've tried to always kind of keep the group small. And so in the scene, it's like, well, we don't have a big group of people to defend them. So what can we use? I know. How's she going to make it to the parking deck? I guess we'll pull up some trees and create a whirlwind like a tornado. So yeah, that's probably overtelling the scene. But trying to think of other scenes in Teleworld. Kaylin sort of disappears at the end of Colorworld, and we don't really know where she is, and that's kind of a starting thing. Like it's the start of Teleworld is like, where's Kaylin? Nobody knows what happened to her. I've been trying to get in touch with her, but she's not answering. And Kaylin shows up kind of out of nowhere. Maybe a third of the way through the book, and she's like ready to go. She's like, let's get Louise. I gotta find Louise. And we find out that she's kind of been kept incommunicado with everybody by her father, and that he hasn't allowed her to contact anybody, and that's where she's been. And then supposedly he's been kidnapped, right, by Louise. And so Kaylin's immediately ready to go after Louise. So that was a really fun scene to write too, where they try to capture Louise, where they're in a neighborhood, and Wendy ends up kind of, Robert gets this vision of this house somewhere and this particular neighborhood, and he's like, here's what the house looks like. And Wendy realizes that he can transfer his vision to her, and she can actually see what it is that he's seeing. And because she has such great vision, she's able to see the house that they're looking for from far away. And so that sort of like stakeout, that stakeout scene was really fun to write. I actually preferred writing that scene over like the desert scene or the parking garage scene because there were less characters to deal with, and it was quiet, and they're doing a stakeout, and Ezra's being really punchy, and Gabe's being like, "Hey, shut up, Ezra," and Wendy's kind of like feeling really good about herself because she gets to use her long-range surveillance senses to help find Louise. So, and she ends up hiding like in a tree to like look for everybody. So yeah, another fun scene. All right, Brad, do you want to talk about the gas station? I've been talking about the scene you totally didn't even mention, the one where they're on the stakeout and she's hiding in the tree. Did you forget about that one? You're like, oh, gas station.
Well, for me, it's I guess I had forgotten that much was in 2. There's so much in 4, and that a lot of that kind of like hunting and hiding and seeking and shooting and things getting really exciting is in book 4. That I think in my head I just ascribed. I was like, oh, there can't be that much in book 2. Has to be just the desert and the gas station and the well, the gas station is a totally different scene, but the shopping mall and the I hadn't really thought about. I mean, it's cool that like you start to learn the actual extent of people's abilities.
Well, especially Robert. Like you really haven't experienced Robert's foresight.
And you still at this point are suspicious of Robert?
Oh yeah, because he could just be totally playing everybody.
Like, I mean,
we're gonna find.
That's
Louise.
true.
I mean, it's clear that Louise and Robert are enemies, but maybe they're enemies and both bad. Robert maybe wants Wendy's asset to himself. They're in a war over.
And if we're trying to use Robert's ability to kind of predict, and he's working with Louise, it would be pretty easy to look legitimate because Louise could just simply be at the places that he, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can see that. I don't know. I mean, I was suspicious of Robert for like 2 chapters, and then I'm like,
I don't know. I'd be interested to see what other people.
Yeah, for those of you who have read Colorworld and Teleworld, what amount of suspicion do you harbor for Robert? I've thought so fondly of Robert for so long that my suspicion of his was very short-lived. I'm with Ezra. I think I
waffled. I was like, yeah, I like Robert. Wait, no, I don't like Robert.
No, he could be bad. I feel like Ezra never doubted. Did he ever? I feel like it was always Wendy's skepticism.
I think Ezra, true to his teenagerness, was like willing to just go with whatever Wendy said. Teenagers never want to make a decision about stuff. They're like,
it's true.
I don't know. You decide. Yeah. Which is ironic since they want all this freedom. They're like, oh, but you decide. I don't want to decide this. But wait, let me do whatever I want.
Teenagers only decide.
There's such a paradox.
When it means that they will upset you.
Anyway, that's for Teenager Talk Thursday.
Teenager Talk Thursday. Parenting on Pop Shop Live with 2 parents that have so many children. Oh my goodness. Oh man. All right. Joshua, welcome in. Jackie, welcome in. Christy, Jackie, welcome back. Oh man.
Marie.
I know I got creations and I've got
Marie. Marie Creations.
Xena Marie?
Xtina Marie Creations.
Xtina Marie Creations. Welcome in. Welcome
that
in.
Was fun.
I mean, yeah. I do notice that I have less trouble with names than other people do. The other day we were out and I was like, oh man, I just want to help this person so bad with these names.
Yeah, it is like that.
It is, yeah.
I'm not sure what it is.
But then, when I'm reading, I'll assign whatever name I want to.
Oh my gosh, like Lois. I was like, who is Lois?
I just call your characters whatever I want to in my head.
That's how it happened with M. Night Shyamalan. He's like, I'm going to call him whatever I want. It's Ong. It's Ong. But I read it in the comic. He's like, I don't watch that cartoon. I read the.
What if that's how it happened? What if that's literally how it happened? And he'd never seen a single episode.
We have to call him Ong.
I bet that is.
That's what I read.
In his
So-
head, if he read the entire like graphic novel to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it was always on.
In his head. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I read it. It's kind of like if you read Harry Potter, I was like, Hermione? Hermione?
Were you
Yeah. I was like, I don't know how to say this name.
really?
Hermione.
So you called her Hermione for
in my
7
head,
books?
In my head, she was Hermione. And they finally had the movie. I was like, oh, Hermione. What?
Oh man.
It's spelled Hermione.
That's amazing.
So
Okay, well, everyone should let M. Night Shyamalan off the hook now. That's a done deal. What's up, Nick?
one would have
on 2
thought that he
platforms?
would have gotten some sort of advice from somebody who did the cartoon, though. Just saying.
But he doesn't. He's not that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want advice from anybody.
Yeah, it's like he's like you. He's like
What? I
it's
called
Lois
10
in
people.
my head. I'm just
oh,
gonna call
sure,
it Lois.
Sure.
Louise.
I'm just saying, in terms of advice, man, I will call 10 people to get advice on stuff. Yeah, but names, no, I'm not interested. Not interested. Creatures of Decay, welcome in. We're talking Teleworld, book 2 in the Colorworld book
Yeah,
series.
if your name is too hard, you usually just give them a nickname.
Oh, I
You're like,
definitely.
your name's too hard. I'm just gonna.
I
call you
give a
this.
lot of people nicknames. Lots.
Like 3J.
Just ask those guys
He's
over
like,
there.
oh, my name's James, Joseph, Joker. Actually, I gave 3J his name. Did you know that?
Jingleheimer
Do you remember
Schmitz.
that?
You.
I called him 3J.
I bet you did.
And then you were like, "That's a great idea." I'll call him 3J.
Yes. His name, my name. No, Rachel gave 3J his name. For me, it was like every time I was out in public with him, he'd introduce himself to other. He would change.
He's a different J name.
He would change who he would say. Oh, I'm Joker. Oh, I'm this.
Joseph.
And then I looked at his Facebook and I was like, bro, what is your freaking legal name? Because if we're going to hire you, I'm going to need to put something down that the government won't come back to me and say, what is this? So that's, yeah. And then it was the name of his legal name was something totally different than all the, I was like, that's it. That's it. This,
3J.
yep.
Joseph.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmitz. That's him. John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmitz. So we just
That's
call him
only 2
3J.
days.
John Jacob Jingleheimer?
Oh, John. Okay, you're right.
3J. I can count. Well, welcome in, Diane. Okay, so we're talking book
Hi,
2.
Nick.
We're talking Nick's on 2 platforms. See,
I see
he's on
that.
Twitch and Facebook.
Get her done.
Get her done. Do you have rules? I'm pretty sure. When was Game of Thrones? When did that exist?
I don't know. A few years ago.
Well, I would imagine anybody who was writing during the Game of Thrones had to ask himself, like, how many people were going to die? Do you have like a list of people that are acceptable to die? How did deaths work in Colorworld? Because right off the bat, several people
I
are
just
dead.
have to be moved that somebody's gonna die. I mean, I don't like killing people.
So there's no rules in your universe in terms of.
No, everybody can die except the main character.
Oh.
Like they're always a possibility. And the
Okay.
reason I say that is because in
Everybody
Divergent,
but Wendy. Oh.
Divergent, she kills the main character. I'm like, how does that work? How do you? And it's also it's told first person point of view. So
Did you read that? Did you read that part? What happened?
No, I didn't finish the series. I found that out and I was like, oh heck no, I'm not reading that.
Oh wow. A lot of people revolted, did they not? I feel like there was a fan.
I know that people gave her a really hard time about it. And they should, because what? And if they're gonna kill, and she's got to bring her back to life.
I don't know.
If you're gonna kill the main character, you have to bring him back.
You didn't. I would be interested. Does the book just stop at that point?
So it switches to her love interest point of view.
Just inexplicably, like dead, and then next chapter, or like same chapter, like how?
No, I think like next chapter.
Okay, so
like
chapter's over.
In the middle of the book,
dead.
Like she's dead, and
then it starts from him. Okay.
I don't know what she was thinking.
I really liked the
I'm
movies. I thought the movies were cool.
I didn't like the movies.
Oh, really?
No, I don't. I didn't finish the books, and I
Ouch!
Movies, so.
Whoa!
That was a great idea.
It was a great idea, executed so poorly.
Yeah, because I really love. Oh my gosh, I love.
Did she have another?
Dystopian and
you like that
apocalyptic?
I got you.
All that stuff. I love that stuff.
Are we headed there in Colorworld? Are we headed to a?
Oh yes.
Post. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're gonna get some of Rachel's
every good book
favorite,
has post-apocalyptic elements.
Every good book series has post-apocalyptic world
Yes.
that you have to live in.
Yep.
What is up, Wolf Black?
But see, the cool thing about Colorworld is you see the transition. You're always either you're already in the
you're already
post-apocalypse,
there.
or you're
You're
like,
heading there, and you
Yeah.
never see what it looks like afterwards.
before. You never see like the transition of
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. So you Colorworld is in a lot of ways a cleanup of a lot of ideas gone wrong.
Well, I told you it's the story I wanted to read.
Fantastic. If you want to read a good story.
I was like, I think I call this pre-post-apocalyptic.
Colton. I got to get back to Colton. You can see.
Yo,
Colton, you alive. Colton's one of my
Colton should get on Pop Shop.
56 unread text messages. Oh gosh, there's so much to do. I need to call Blake back too.
Okay.
All right.
Back on topic.
So everybody can die but the main character. There are no rules.
Yes, I've considered killing everybody except for
Have you really?
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. How do you have like a rating? How do you decide who lives?
Well, I have to think about what does the world look like after this person
them.
is dead.
Okay.
And if Wendy is better because of this, then sure they can die.
Ouch.
Um,
Ouch.
if it fixes an issue,
If it fixes the problem. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure that's what every murderer sounds like when they're killing somebody. If this fixes the problem.
if their business is finished, then they're gone.
Wow.
So
let's hope I never exhaust my role in this world.
Because death is such a fantastic motivator. I mean that
really
not in like a vindictive way, but in life, like it's like mortality is so important.
So what do you do with somebody like me who just doesn't give a fetch?
What do you mean?
Like, okay.
No, I don't mean. So sure, it's a motivator for people who are afraid to die, but it's also a motivator for people who are left behind. Like a lot of people's major changes in their life occur because someone they love died.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's one of the best ways to move a character forward really quickly. Because normally if you try to move a character too quickly, it's not realistic.
Yes.
But death is like the shoe in. You want to move that character along? That's what I did in Charlotte.
Ooh, almost fell over. I'm going to fall over.
Which we'll talk about in Charlotte.
In Charlotte. Yeah. I mean, literally in my own personal life, it was like my grandfather's death got my head out of my butt and like literally, lettered in 5 sports my senior year, college scholarship.
I became a writer after my dad died. Like my dad died, and then and a lot of the pieces that I did were about my dad's death, and that's how I kind of like discovered like my inner
ability to write. Okay,
writing was because of experiencing that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's as Robert says, death is mankind's greatest weapon, and how you use your death. Right, you live your life a certain way. Your death can be particularly meaningful to other people and will help change them for the better. So that's important to remember, that we're all moving toward death.
Oh yeah.
And how you move toward death will matter to people once you're gone a great deal. So if you want to motivate people to change, the best way to do it is move toward your death with particular grace, particular goal in mind. And that's what Robert.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always surprised by my mom and I were talking the other day about there was a hurricane in North Carolina. Fran is a pretty large hurricane. It goes down as one of the most destructive. And I just remember my mom like getting everybody downstairs, and we're in a room that we're never in, sitting in chairs that sits in. In fact, if I remember correctly, I don't even know if we were allowed to sit in these chairs. I don't know what the purpose of them was. Like there was these blue old, and they looked like what somebody who was older would have in their place. And I feel like we weren't even allowed in there. It was like only for adults to go in and sit there. So we find ourselves in this room during a hurricane. It's the middle of the night. I'm like, this is ridiculous. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die sleeping in my bed. I'm going back to bed. I'll say a prayer, Mom. You two can be downstairs scared out of your mind. If we're going to die, if the roof's going to come off, it's going to come off whether I'm on the first floor or second floor. So if a tree hits me, I'm going to die quicker than if I get pinned under a couple floors worth of rubble. Yeah, I'm going back to bed. And I have always had that. When I got on 80 West and risked my life to get to SAC Anime, at no point was I like, oh, this could result in my death. I'm like, oh, this is really dangerous, and I could end up in a really bad spot that I'm gonna have to think really hard how to get out of. Well, here goes. Move road cone, drive on to 8, put road cone back. I got gloves. I put gloves on so that in case the highway patrol was like, oh, who moved this cone and then died on 80 West. I didn't want my
fingerprint the road
I didn't want
cone,
my
see who it was.
fingerprints on the road cone. So I like moved it. And then I was like, oh, this is great.
I swear, whenever I need to come up with a scheme for Gabe to come up with in the books, I always think, what would Bradley do? And then that's what Gabe does.
That's okay. Oh, man. I remember one time you asked me, you're like, what happens if you were separated and the person, and I was here and you were like, what would you do? And I told you what I would do. And you're like, that's the stupidest thing ever. You're so ridiculous. This conversation's over. That's so dumb. Who would do that? I don't know what happened.
I remember what it was.
Do you? Has it already happened in the book?
It didn't happen in the book. But it always helped me to remember to think like crazy.
Oh, really?
When it comes to Gabe's schemes.
So you never used that, or it was something that went totally different?
It just didn't fit into the story.
Okay.
It was like if you want to locate Louise and she has a post office box, like what would be the best way to like actually locate her if you didn't know her physical address? And you're like, well, you'd plant this thing in her post office box that it basically shot outward locator that would land on her without her knowing, and then you would use a locator to be able to track her from that point. And I was like,
yeah, I mean that's pretty logical, right?
Is that a real thing, like a projectile locator launch?
I've seen lots of movies that have.
I'm like picturing like opening the post office box.
Yeah, but it's tiny. It's tiny. You don't see it.
Who's invented
it's like
that?
spring loaded,
It has
right?
to be realistic.
It's spring loaded. So like they somehow get a copy of her PO box key, or they dress up somebody. You've seen the James Bond movie, right? Where they put the digital mask on, and then you go and you're like, oh, I lost my PO box key, and then you just pay your $10 or whatever it is because they hate when you lose your PO box key. And then you get in there.
How would you get in the post office box?
I just told you.
They always ask for ID. They always do.
Like Robert can fabricate an ID. Like easy stuff, man. Young people get into clubs all the time.
You're talking about like a minuscule locator.
It can be, yeah. And then
been invented.
And then you pull the drawer and it springs and it just. Whoop.
Yeah. See, you remember, don't you? Know it's coming back to you. It's exactly what you told me.
Easy.
It's like
easily done.
Get it? I got it. It's gonna be something crazy, but it's not gonna be that.
Foolproof plan. First try. Jennifer, welcome in. Jen, welcome in. Jen spelled with a G.
See, it was so ridiculous. I remembered it.
Oh,
isn't that funny?
I just remember you asked me, and you were so like over my response, and I was like, "Oh man, I might not get asked for advice anymore." Rachel thinks my answers are really stupid, but you and I solve problems in really different ways.
That's true.
Really,
somehow we end up in the middle. Something that actually works.
Actually, all my schemes work. When you're not around, I go with my plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see? My mom knows. I know. Apparently the game started at 7 p.m. Eastern, and not. I thought we had time to get to the game. All right, 17 minutes left of Book Talk Tuesday. If anybody wants to grab a copy, it's in the product catalog. We put some metal bookmarks in there in the product catalog. The gas station, the thing that moved me at the gas station. So here's the scene at the gas station. If you're not there in the book yet, this has been the thing that motivated me for years. Gabe and Wendy end up, he's driving, right? Quinn?
Yes. No, Quinn works at the gas station.
Who's driving?
Gabe.
And it's just Wendy and Gabe.
And Kaylin and Ezra.
But Gabe has gone in and met Quinn at the gas station and finds out.
No.
So set the scene for me.
Okay. They've pulled up to the gas station and they're trying to figure out, like, they need to part ways, right? Because Wendy and Gabe are still estranged, right? They just were in it for like the action and now they're going to go their separate ways. So Wendy goes into the gas station to ask to use the phone. And Quinn is working there. And she has this encounter with him. And then she walks out of the gas station and Quinn like stops her. And then Ezra knows who Quinn is and is like, stay away from my sister, you dirtbag, right? You've hurt her, blah, 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 blah. And so Gabe sort of ascertains that this Quinn guy is important.
Pretty important.
And so he's like hella jealous, of course. It's the best way to make people jealous, right? Is to talk to your ex. I don't know. And so he's like trying to hold in like his reaction to her because she's basically has accepted this invitation from Quinn to take her in, right? Because she's like, I don't know anybody else. Can I stay with you for a few days until I figure out, right? And Gabe's like, you're gonna stay with this guy who, left you when it's super important to you and like left you high and dry. And so that's, and she's like, this isn't any of your business, man, because we're separated. And so then he kind of shuts up and then they're about to leave. And then Wendy has thought up until that point, because of how distant Gabe has been, that he's kind of given up on the relationship. But really what he's been doing is trying to let her make her own decisions.
Right.
It's like, he's like, I've lost her. I need to stop pushing. I need to let her do what it is she wants to do. And so when he has this reaction to Quinn, she realizes, well, maybe he really isn't over me, right? Because he's done a pretty good job of convincing her that he's done, And so when she realizes that, and she kind of realizes in that same moment after meeting Quinn that she really does want Gabe. So up until this point, both of them have decided that they're going their separate ways for their very different reasons. And then when she sees Quinn, she realizes what she had with Gabe. And Gabe, when he sees her with, right, then he can't help but betray his feelings. And so then they end up talking finally, because Quinn appears on the scene and brings up all of these
but their conversation where he pretends to be Wendy.
Oh, you're talking about later on after so Quinn finally, like, once everybody makes up, right, Gabe and Wendy get back together, they get into Quinn's truck. All the Kaylin and Ezra sit in the back and Wendy and Gabe are in the seat.
So Quinn is driving.
Yeah, after the gas station. They leave the gas station.
Oh my gosh. Well, that to me, what I've always referred to as the gas station. What we're talking about now, this second, not about Gabe and Wendy.
Yes.
I'm talking about where
once they've made up, they're Quinn is trying to apologize for their past. And
Wendy's not having it.
Yeah. And so Gabe sees that hasn't come to terms with something.
Well, that Wendy's preventing everybody from moving forward. And so Wendy's like huffing and puffing silent. And Gabe's like, here, I have an idea. I'll be Wendy. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have the conversation with Quinn. Let's fix the relationship. And Gabe jumps into, and to me, what I loved about it is that Gabe is so mature in this moment to put aside that he's about to open up all sorts of things that he really doesn't know about, right? Quinn's a total surprise to Gabe.
Oh yeah.
And even in the moment, does what I think to be one of the most mature things, and offers to kind of have this conversation on behalf of Wendy, and they're talking back and forth, and then all of a sudden Wendy's like, no, it was blah blah blah, and everyone's like,
yeah. He basically, so Wendy was pregnant as a teenager.
Yeah.
Quinn's the father. And Wendy at that point was going to go to art school before she got pregnant. That was what was going to happen. And then she got pregnant, and then she ended up not going to art school. And so all this time she's thought that or she's had in her mind that the reason that she didn't go to art school was because of this pregnancy that, like, hold on, it'd be better if I just
You're trying to
this
find
in.
it?
Yeah.
What I love about the conversation is that Gabe puts aside any sort of feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, because the one thing as the new person that you can never do is you can never erase the history that these people,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so that, I know for me personally, despite the fact that I won, haha, you sleep next to me at night, there are still, you know, at least one person in your past that holds to this day this light of, this is a good dude, good person, and just, you know, the cards played a different way, and, you know, you have to, you know, as the new person, I can never take that back. That history is always written. And so to see Gabe like be willing to swallow all of that, like, not only has this dude not touched Wendy, but this guy who's driving the truck has had a baby with his wife still-ish, and he puts all of that aside to move everyone forward, move Quinn forward, move Wendy forward, and he's just a facilitator. Gabe literally takes himself out and pretends to be Wendy for this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just always, in my mind, I'm like, where did you think of that? How did you come up with this? It's like the greatest solution to the situation ever, because it moves the story forward. So not only just the story, but if you see them as people, it moves Wendy forward. Quinn, I mean, how much you want to bet this has been eating Quinn as much as it's been eating Wendy?
Yeah, well, so the thing that that he's trying to help her overcome is the fact that her daughter, who she had as a teenager, ends up dying. She puts her up for adoption, and then the daughter dies from RSV, which is a illness that babies get sometimes. So she dies from RSV, and so Wendy, ever since then, has carried this guilt that if I hadn't put her up for adoption, she'd still be alive.
She'd still be alive,
right? And so that's the story that she's been telling herself all of these years, like, and also that she gave her up because she wanted to pursue art school. That's what she wanted to do, right? So she's been telling her these things over and over and over again. But what she realizes once Gabe becomes her and Quinn becomes is himself, is that wasn't, that she really just wanted her daughter to have a better life, and, you know, regardless of the outcome, she did something selfless, not selfish. She didn't give her up because
she wanted to pursue art school. Yeah. She gave her up because she didn't think that the baby's life would be worth a hill of beans if this not put together teenage mother tried to raise her.
Yeah. So she kind of like realizes in that moment that her memory is completely wrong, that she's been lying to herself all of this time.
Right.
And that came as a result of, you know, Gabe pretending to be her. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I wanted her to have I wanted some closure about the whole, like, Wendy having a baby when she was a teenager thing, because that's a big deal. And there was no way, because Gabe didn't have any information except for what Wendy told him. And so I had to bring somebody in who had a history with her.
Really?
Yeah, because nobody else is going to be able to tell her except for someone
who's
there.
What made you think to resolve that in the middle of all this?
Well, I think I brought Quinn in before I thought about that part. Like, Quinn came into the story to get Gabe and Wendy back together, but it ended up serving another purpose.
So you, in your head, you're like, how do you get him to realize what he wants?
Well, how do you get Wendy to? Because that's really the thing. Wendy needed to realize that, because she's at this point, you know, has made the narrative fit what she's
made all the facts
point to her
Her
decision,
decision.
being correct. And so the only thing that was going to make her realize that her decision was wrong is to look at something that had failed, like this relationship with this guy from years ago, and that had failed. And what was it about him that she couldn't live with? And then in realizing that everything that she had a problem with is something that Gabe possesses, that he, is the solution to that. So that was really the whole reason to bring Quinn in at all. And so then once he was there, it was like, well, let's explore these ancient issues, right? Because really that's the last time they've talked to each other is,
right.
From, years ago when she was pregnant.
The last time Quinn and
Wendy
have
together.
talked to each other.
Yeah. So of course, and Gabe has this way of just sort of bringing up old, uncomfortable things. That's what he does.
Money, religion, politics, and sex. Those are the only things worth talking about. Everything else is just details. It's all driven by those 4 things. The 4 things my mother told me never to talk about at the dinner table. I make sure I talk about them at every dinner table. That's what people really want to talk about. Yeah. I just thought it was to imagine, because how old were you when you wrote the series? 2013.
30? I was younger than 30.
Well, how old are you now?
39.
Okay. If you're 39 now.
So I was younger than 30. I was like 27. Somewhere between 27 and 30 is when I.
Okay. Somewhere in your late 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, you as a person aren't, like now that I'm 42, I'll be 43 this year. At some point you'll be 40. Right. I look at 20-year-olds and I'm like, man, you don't know anything. But I can only say that because I'm in my 40s now. You don't know it then. But
no, but I mean, you have to remember that experience, it's not really about years, it's about experience.
Oh, that's true.
So, Wendy has gotten pregnant, daughter died.
Yep.
Mother died.
Dropped out of art school.
Had
Mom's
to take
dead.
care of her brother.
Right.
Like these are huge things that you don't normally face that early in life. And so she had to, in order for Wendy to be a realistic character of like a 19-year-old that really has a pretty good head on her shoulders, she has to have been through some pretty horrific
through the grinder,
things.
yeah.
And that was really part of the reason that I had this whole story of her being pregnant as a teenager, because I was like, Wendy needs to grow up. I'm not writing a 15-year-old. So,
yeah,
she's taking care of her brother. She's responsible. She's got ideas.
And you're really, you're writing a 19-year-old in age only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I know that you have been called an old soul your whole life. You've always been told you're older than. It really struck me as I read it at how mature putting that scene together was. I don't think I've ever seen such a satisfactory resolution to the new guy meeting the old guy. Like nobody.
Oh yeah, like I'm really not a fan of jealousy. Like
it doesn't look good on people.
Yeah, it's fun for like a minute, but if it's serious, like it's just get over yourself. It's such a.
If what's serious?
Like if somebody's jealous and it's like definitely threatening the relationship. It's one thing to be jealous, like in passing, like, oh, this thing has made me jealous. You're talking and, whatever. But if you like dwell on it and then like you feel it on a regular basis,
eating at
you up, like,
yeah,
it's not fun. So I don't mind writing a scene of jealousy or here or there, but I definitely do not want to see jealousy destroy a relationship. And so I'm not interested in exploring
Interesting. That. Okay.
And also, by that point, I met people that you had dated?
Well, you definitely already knew. Gosh, have you ever met Stephanie number 2?
Oh yeah, I've met her. I don't know if I'd met her by then.
You've never met Stephanie number 1.
No.
Or Annie. It was really just Alicia. Sorry, Alicia's the white version. Alicia is really the only one that you had met. And probably one of the Sarahs. Yeah. So what was your
What were we saying
I don't
before?
well to me I just was so impressed that you go into that and it's so atypical. It's so the opposite of in every other
Oh,
thing.
I mean, I guess so. You know, and I didn't really consider that part. I didn't really consider that when you first started talking about the gas station scene. Like, in fact, even now, when you're like, "Oh, the gas station scene," the first thing
I
I
know
think of is
you
like,
started talking and I was like,
so in
no,
my head,
no.
it's not a big deal. Like, that's just how people should be. I'm always, I guess, a little shocked when people don't, or when they treat exes like they have to, like they did not exist. You know, like, oh, I broke up with this person, we don't talk anymore. It's so weird to me.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you've had sex with the person. Like, how are you just gonna like block that out? Like, how do you deal with that as a human being? Like, I don't know. I don't know how you do that. So to me, it just seems natural that you would. I talk to my ex every single day. I mean, if they're a cool person,
Yeah.
you know, my ex spent like $100-$200 on her Kickstarter.
Oh, for sure. Herb repeatedly comes in whenever there's a Kickstarter, a new book.
Yeah. I don't even know if he's read any of them, but he's
He's helped fund them all. And Rachel's done conventions with two of my ex-girlfriends. Even without me around. Rachel has run Colorworld booths with Kendra.
yeah.
And
I just think it's just really leave yourself, like, you really leave a lot on the table when you wash your hands of a relationship and walk away and never look back. Like, there, and I really hate Ariana Grande, but that whole like "Thank You Next," really, that song "Thank You Next," really does a great job of talking about the idea of getting something out of every relationship. Like, oh, it's been great to know you. Thank you. Next, right? So I like that. I like that idea, and I don't like the song, but it's a great concept.
I'm gonna have to go back and I don't like the song either, but I think I saw that a different way. I think I saw that as like, you're over. I'm gonna need my next one because you're.
No, if you listen to more than just the chorus.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to go back and. Well, I thought it was incredible. I'd never seen it in literature. I'd never seen the ex meeting the ex go. I've never seen it go that way. And it just really opened my eyes to your ability to take these things that we know. Like, we're all very familiar with the X-Men, but you really, like, you took finding the gifted people in a whole nother direction. And we're familiar with, like, secret groups operating behind the scenes, but like repeatedly I've been surprised my constant, like, oh, I sleep next to this woman and I didn't see this coming. How is that possible? Like, your ability to write, there's a technical aspect of writing. And the other crazy part is you took some creative writing, but you do not hold a degree in writing, did not do well in college in writing, and head and editor for the first 3 books, absolutely. And we've talked about how indispensable that was, but to think that there's way more of the series that will find its way onto a page without an editor like Jamie was, and yet I repeatedly find myself not seeing things coming. And I didn't see Gabe stepping up and having that conversation and jumping into that. I loved it. I loved the solution. It was so outside of the box for Gabe to be like, I'll be Wendy. Okay, so Quinn, tell me, like, I loved it. I loved every second of it. And then the moment where Wendy's like, no, it's not like that at all. I was like, oh man, it's just such a mic drop. She just threw the mic on the ground and stomped on it. To me, that's what sold me on your ability to write, and why I should devote so much of my life to like telling this story and going around and essentially knocking on doors. We go and set up at conventions. It takes 10 hours to set up, and we put the books front and center. You can't really. So just like this, when you see us at a show, there's all these bookmarks, and then bam, right in the middle of the books. And we always joke. I know one of the blooper reels is like, "What are all these books?" All right, I want to write. Yeah. So Amber, one of the things that was really interesting for us is it became really hard to tell if our life was writing the color world, like providing the input for Rachel to write the series, or if the series was happening and then we were living it.
Well, then I'd heard so many times like, you should never try to market your first book. You should never try to sell your first book. But I legitimately tried to write other books, and then they just got like sucked into the color world.
Oh, I
Like
remember that.
ideas for
Yeah,
other
yeah,
books
yeah,
just
yeah.
like ended up being
Yeah.
adopted into the color world. So I was like, I guess I'm writing this series, and that's what I'm doing. So I guess right. You can write a story. There's so many ideas out there. So when you find the right one, the book's pretty easy to write. And especially if you're not thinking too hard about it, just don't think too hard about it. Just
And do it.
just get it down on paper.
I remember,
Or
especially in the
computer screen.
early days, a lot of people would want to talk advice about writing with Rachel, and it became pretty clear that those who were going to become writers were going to write the book, and that those who would just dream about writing, piddle about writing, wish they could write a book that would make them wildly rich. It was all about this perception that you could write this thing one time and then sell it to the degree that J.K.
Mhm.
Rowling.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be in that camp, which is why I tried to write other books, and it just never worked out. So, and again, a big thing that helped me was writing nonfiction. So I'm extremely proficient at writing nonfiction. I could probably do a bang up job writing nonfiction, but I don't enjoy it like I do
Fiction.
I do fiction because I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
In nonfiction, I totally know.
Yeah, because it's true.
But with fiction, you don't know what's going to happen. And one of the great things about nonfiction is it teaches you to trust that instinct of like, this object is important somehow. And if I think about it long enough, I'm going to figure out why it's significant. So, for instance, when I wrote A Rig Is Down, like I knew starting off that I wanted to write about oil rigs because that was a common thing in my life, was seeing these oil rigs, but I didn't know what it meant or what it represented in my mind until I started to write about it. And so once I realized that everything around me had some sort of meaning attached to it that I might not have necessarily figured out, it became easier in fiction to trust things that would appear in my stories and be like, that's an interesting thing. I might not know what this is about, but I think if I stick with it long enough, the story's gonna come back to it and it's gonna make sense. So having the faith to trust the things that are in your story to actually carry a story forward, I learned through writing nonfiction.
Yeah, that's one of the surprises for me today is hearing you say how much you would, Wendy can't see water in the color world, and you're like, it's going to come back at some point. Wendy has this ability to use her powers like a battery, and that'll come back at some point. And then like Kaylin is, so I find that incredible, that this ability to just trust that these things. Do you ever have a notebook of odd and interesting facts of people in color world that to like refer to later that
I
you
do
may
write
need?
a lot down, especially if it occurs to me like this might be important later. But I almost never refer back to it if I don't remember it. Like if it just is not that strong of an fact that it doesn't come back to me.
Then that's it.
Yeah, but sometimes I'll write it down, and then something will happen. I'll be like, oh, that was that thing that I wrote down.
Okay.
It totally makes sense now.
Okay.
And so then it becomes a little bit more prominent.
So you're writing it down is really more about being able to recall that later if it comes to you, that like,
yeah, like Gabe's ability to count, like for many books, I never really understood like why that was his ability. Why is Gabe's ability counting? What? I came up with that, but I didn't really have a reason for it. It just seemed like that was the thing. And I'm only just now really figuring out why that's significant and why that was his ability.
I've always thought of him like Prodigy from X-Men. He's like an unsexy X-Men, but like he's although technically Ezra I think would be Prodigy. That Ezra's ability.
In fact, Ezra says that. I'm pretty sure in one of the books. He's like, I'm like Prodigy. And you're like,
Oh,
blah,
I
blah,
love
blah.
it. I love Ezra.
Oh, me too.
I love comics. I love X-Men.
Ezra.
Yeah, in the early days, we would just dress Rachel up like Rogue, and she had her white strip.
I still have that.
Cost. Yeah, it's up in the closet. I saw it the other
fits
day.
me right now. I'll have to lose a little bit of weight. Baby weight.
Baby weight. Don't
Yeah.
lose too much, man. Don't lose too much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Eve, for the follow. I appreciate that. If anybody wants to grab a book before we head out, I usually put them as the store favorites in the in the catalog, the store favorites catalog. I will put the books in the series in the store favorites. I think they are now, so I'll probably leave them there until I know we have a Like a Boss show on Thursday. I feel like is our Like a Boss show. That's a really cool series that we do. Color with Apparel crashes a lot of memes together. So we'll go over that Thursday. And then free shipping Friday, obviously, if you want to grab a book and you just want to hold out for free shipping Friday, we'll be on free shipping Friday, and I can put the books in the series as well. If you ever see us and we're doing a show about t-shirts or metal prints or metal bookmarks, you can always ask us to put the books in the catalog, and we can put whatever book you're on. The next book, pre-order went live on colorworldbooks.com. Colorworldbooks.com. I think, let's see, colorworldbooks.com.
Yeah, those just shipped today too.
Oh man,
They're going to be in our hands.
I didn't know you were going to tell people.
Yeah, of course we have to have them.
Well, I saw
it.
No, this is the first launch ever that we've had the books in our hands, and we're going to be able to
ship them out on the day,
so that people will. Yeah. Well, no, we should do it so people get it on the day. How crazy would that be? Right? And we're like, okay, because you can go into U.S. Post Office, USPS, and find out how long it will take to get, and we could like estimate. I just think it'd be really cool if on release day, people that pre-order can have it in their hands. I think that'd be cool. So you can go to colorworldbooks.com, and somewhere right around, if it's up to me, it's going to be on Valentine's Day, February 14th. You can get the new book. And then there is the deal live. When does the deal go live?
It's live on Valentine's
On Valentine's Day. There will be a book for the entire series that'll be live on colorworldbooks.com.
So you can get the whole set.
Including the newest book.
Book.
And it's a crazy price. So if you want to grab the whole book series and you want a super deal on Valentine's Day, you'll be able to grab that for you or someone that you love.
And if you order on colorworldbooks.com, you get your choice of exclusive bookmarks. So there's 2 exclusive bookmarks with each book. You can only get them if you order on
colorworldbooks.com. And then the audiobook, the 4th audiobook that's my job this year. So we're going to go do some conventions and save my pennies. And then we'll get with Todd Habercorn and Jeremy Lee, Brittany Karbowski, and David Wald. And we're auditioning. So one of you out there can audition to be in the cast of the Colorworld audiobook with Todd and David. Yeah. So if you fancy yourself as a voice actor or ever wanted to work with the likes of some really big names in anime, then you can throw your name in the hat, do your audition, tag us on social media. All of those details are on colorworldbooks.com. So feel free to check that out. And thanks for joining us. Next week for Book Talk Tuesday is Live a World. Oh my goodness. Next Tuesday. It definitely looks like the moon. This is like a lunar landing. You know when the sun comes over the moon? That's what I always think when I see that one.
It's called a corona.
The corona. It's when the light is tangent, right, at a single point to the bubble.
It's a photo, guys. It's a photo.
It is a photograph of a bubble, of an actual soap bubble.
Actual sun glinting off the edge.
Glinting.
You can show them.
Glinting. Sun glinting. Thanks, everybody, for joining us out on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter Live. We are live on the multi-stream. If anybody jumped in late and wants to go back and listen to the earlier parts of this, you can go to the Colorworld Books YouTube channel, and it will be stored live there. It's not a spectacular lighting on the laptop, but it does get the job done, and it does make the content available. Apologies that I literally could not find the laptop for Book Talk Tuesday, the Colorworld edition. But if you ever have any questions, definitely mention us on Twitter's the best one. I'll eventually see them on Instagram, but Twitter is a great platform that we usually try to stay current with. And then you can always email in stuff to that moderator at colorworldbooks.com. So thank you, Rachel Kelly, for joining us. We're going to go find where all of our children are spread, and then we're going to go watch Clemson and Duke play the second half of the basketball game. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you on Thursday, and then we'll see you next week on Book Talk Tuesday.
Like this hand for here.
Yeah, there you go. You can wave with 2 hands. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.